My name's Chris. Today I'm talking about enhancing your Node.js app security with JWTs. Shameless plug, Finicity. I don't think we're hiring any JavaScript people right now, but I do think we're looking for Java people. And also KingdomWorks, that's my consulting company. If you have any consulting needs or need a tutor, go ahead and contact me. So what's a JWT? That's what we're talking about today. So JWT is short for JSON Web Token. And according to the JWT.io, which is the foundation that sort of runs it, says JSON Web Tokens are open, industry standard RFC, blah, 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 method for representing claims, blah, blah, blah. So here's an example JWT. What? So I guess to be more specific, JWTs are tokens with extra. So they're signed by a secret value if you use the symmetric signing, or you can use a private public key. They can be verified to not have been tampered with, hence through the signing. They can contain a data payload when decoded, and they expire independently, so you don't have to track expired tokens. That probably still people are confused. So, so tokens have been around for a long time in computer science. Tokens often represent a signed-in user during authentication. You'll see them in the cookies of a request. Here's a random token example. So let's actually test tokens. Let's go to twitter.com, and I made a fake Twitter account earlier. And let's open up the network tag over here and do some plus, and we can log in. And what? Okay, never mind. But you will notice, maybe we can find in the cookies here some sort of token. There's all sorts of tokens here. So basically, I'm not going to go back to that. Is everybody clear on what a token is? Yeah? Don't have to go more into this. All right, so the basic example is you have a client. The client has the token probably through cookies, sends it to the server, and the server either saves it in the database or has some sort of logic to say this token belongs to this user, this is a good guy, he can be into our system. So let's go back to that. So okay, so what's a problem with this example? Anybody? Getting ahead of us. All right, well, yes, that is a problem. You can man-in-the-middle attacks, you can hijack the token. The other one is what happens if this happens and you have a load balancer, right? So now you have to keep track of the tokens inside of memcache or a radius instance. And what if your cache goes down and now you have to maintain this extra thing just for load balancing? So that kind of sucks. The other one is man-in-the-middle attack. So somebody can, MIM stands for man-in-the-middle, sorry. Probably should have clarified that. So you have a token, you send it, somebody's listening on your Wi-Fi or has hijacked your router somehow. They grab your token and they pretend to be you to the service, and they send you back a hijacked token, and now they're you. So that sucks. So, so the cool thing about JWTs is, so let's do this. So we had this JWT earlier. So if you go to JWT.io, there's a JWT debugger, and you can enter stuff, right? And the JWT has three parts: a header, a payload, and a signature. So if you modify any parts of this, it's going to change the JWT, right? So if you have a man-in-the-middle attack, right, you're going to get back a different JWT than you sent the client initially, and you're going to say, wait a second, something's going on here. Does that make sense to people? So the other thing too is we have data inside of our JWT. So we don't have to maintain well, so stepping back to our points. So we don't have to do caching because we know that this JWT came from us because we signed it with either our secret string or our public key. So that's a plus. We don't have to track it anywhere and keep an array of tokens somewhere and remove or create an expired tokens array. So we don't have to worry about the man-in-the-middle worries because the token changes if somebody changes it somehow. The other thing, too, about them is, like I said, they expire automatically. So you'll notice that this token, well, not this token, but you can expire the tokens for like after an hour or a day, right? And that token no longer becomes valid, and you have to issue a new JWT to your user. So the other thing, too, is since the token has data in it, like I said earlier, you can just maintain the state between your load balanced applications without having to have this caching layer here, right? You just pass the JWT token to your server, and the token, since it can be decoded and has data and can be signed, right? You don't have to maintain that cache between these two layers because both of those servers will obviously have access to the data that's the payload of the JWT, but also to the signing certificate to view or to create a new token. All right, so what about CSRF? So what is CSRF? CSRF is cross-site request forgery. CSRF is bad, and so there's a Twitter demo of CSRF. So question for you guys, is this the twitter.com website? No, it is not. So what CSRF is so this is actually something I'm running on localhost. I just changed the name so you guys wouldn't catch up on it so quickly. So CSRF is I create a website that looks exactly like yours and try to get your credentials and send you an email through a phishing attack, for example, so that you have to enter your credentials to get into my website so that I can impersonate you to the other site. Does that make sense to everybody? So that obviously would suck for that to happen to you. So if you have an API or you have a site that's using JWTs, you don't really have to worry about that because if you have a cookie that's coming back in the response from a request on the page, you'll obviously see that JWT, make sure you signed it because you're the only one that has the secret key that signed the JWT with. So that kind of makes it, I want to say impossible, but definitely a lot harder for CSRF. Go for it.
CSRF is far worse than what you described. It's the cookie that sends automatically will send with any action that you take. So you could create a button on your website that if you know the API of the other website, if the person visits your website at all and clicks on anything, you can make a post request to something you suspect that they're sending. So it's really, really bad.
So yeah, so you're hijacking people's cookie.
And that's a browser feature that Microsoft offers.
Yeah. Well, so the other thing too is that, so I found this out the other day, is that in Chrome, if you make a Chrome extension, you have complete access to all of the cookies for all of the sites. So obviously I'm oversimplifying here about CSRF, but do you guys see how the JWT can sort of make this a little bit more secure in this sense, in that you signed the cookie, so therefore you can make sure that the cookie hasn't been changed or modified at any point, and you can also expire the cookie automatically through the JWT features. So if you want to make something very secure, you can issue a cookie that only lasts 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever. Go ahead.
So in order to replicate the signature, someone would have to have the secret key that
Yeah, so with, like I said, so let me spend a little bit more time on this. So the secret key is probably the simplest thing, and once we get into the code, that's what we'll be using. But a much better way to do it would be is if you have a private public key pair, and then you sign the JWT with your public key, and then you have to read it with your private key. And nobody's going to have access to it's going to be very hard to crack a 4096-bit private key. It's going to take the heat death of the universe before somebody can get access to that. So, does that make sense? Cool. So, in this case, like I was saying, this minimizes the possibility of someone pretending to be your site, right? Because they have to have the token that you originally created in order to even get any further into the authentication process. So at this point, I was going to do like a live coding exercise. So we're going to implement JWTs in a Node service. Before I do that, there is code. You can go to this link and view it. I don't think it's actually up to date based on what I'm going to be showing you guys, but you can go there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Nope. All right. So let's make this a lot bigger. So here we have a simple Express app, right? We have a bunch of helper directories. We have a public folder, and we have this auth.js, which is an Express router, and some helper functions. So I'm going to go ahead and start my server. And if I go to the page, so I'll close all of this stuff. So now we have this localhost 5000 name with a username and a password. So this code hasn't been implemented yet because we're going to implement it together. But you will notice if I click this test and test button and do the awesome secure JWT login button, it is going to make a request to, oh my gosh. Where is the drive? There you go. To a auth/secret method. It's giving back a 404, but you'll notice that it is posting with username and password of test. So here we have a JWT secret file, and this has an Express router, and you'll notice that there is an auth helpers. Well, so first of all, let's do the CSRF thing. I totally forgot about that. So here we have a page. We have a generate login page, right? And this is just using template strings to make some HTML that you see over there. So let's go back over here, and we can generate a CSRF token by doing const CSRF equals await, and we have this Jwt Helper class over here, which takes a secret in the constructor and sets secret to this .secret. I don't know what that's for. I don't know what that's for. I wrote this code too, so that's me talking to myself. And we have a generate token method, which takes data and a secret, which defaults to this .secret. And then we can ignore this for the purpose of this thing, because we're not going to do the public-private key live. And this is just returning a new promise, which uses the JSON web token package. And this takes a sign, which takes the data, the secret, an expiry time, like I was saying before, and if there's an error, and the token. And so this is just going to, if there's an error, reject, and when the token is done, resolve. And then we're going to log out the token to make sure that that stuff's all working. So here we can do, so here we're passing a JWT secret, which is coming from this directory. And this is just a string that we'll use for the purpose of this to keep things simple. I will post to this code repository how to do the public and private key stuff, and you guys can look it up later. I was just in a rush to get this done, I'm going to be honest. So this we will call Jwt Helper dot generate token, and we will pass an object of logged in false, and then the secret is already provided. We don't have to provide that for us. So then we can say res.cookie, and we will say author and pass the token, and then let's do, I don't know, secure true and HTTP only true, which if you don't know, when you use those options, then in modern browsers, the JavaScript in the page cannot access those cookies when they're, when, you know, and we'll look at the code when the request, when the XHR processes to this route, it'll get back a response, and in the JavaScript where you can see all the cookies, the cookie won't be present. So that way, if there's like a bad script in the page, they won't have access to the cookie. Just random stuff. It's not necessary for the purpose of this demo, but just throwing that in there. So now, if this is restarted, sorry, let me move this over. We will refresh. No, go away, I don't care. And you will notice that we have a cookie. No, we don't. We should. Oh. Yes, so we have this authorization cookie. Cool. So now, once we get to the request that's going to process, we will see that cookie in the request to the route that will log the user in. So now this is still 4.4 because we haven't implemented this. So we'll go over here to JWT. Well, so first I need to uncomment this, JWT router, and then JWT. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. JWT secret router. And JWT secret router. Okay. So now, here we should be able to, well, so let's remove this for a second. We should be able to say CSRF cookie. And then we can do rec.cookies. I think it should be authorization. And we'll just say res.send. For now, false. All right. So now, if we make a request, we've got a 200. And we have a response of success false. And if we look at our server, there is no cookie. So let's do this. Very interesting. This worked before. And this is what happens when you live code.
Where's where you're building up the HTML?
The HTML, it's right here in this HTML helper. It's just template strings. So, and this is calling this public auth fns function. Oh, you know what? I forgot one thing. Let's make this more readable. All right. So now, so we have a secret, and in the request headers, it is not sending it. So we have to do this. I swear this worked before. Maybe it's because we did this. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so now we are getting the cookie here. So we can go over here to the secret file, and we can say const cookie equals rectum. Well, so let's first do this. Let's make sure that the cookie is present. So if rectum cookies authorization res status 500. Res.json. Oh, well, so this will probably be a 403, I think. Res.json. Error. No. Token. All right, so we can do this. And so now, so let's make this an async function. We can import our Jwt Helper dot validate token, and so this is going to, if we come over here, so this will take our, well, so this is actually middleware, so we can add this as middleware, but so let's just read the token for now. And so that's just going to take the token. The secret will be default to this dot secret. And so let's read token. And this is a promise. So now we can console.log that out. And come back here and submit that. All right, so we have our token. I don't know why it's sending back a 403. Oh, duh. Okay. So now we have a token, right? And so we can say, okay, so if token dot, let's see here, we have dot logged in, right? Then we can say, let's generate a new token for the user. So we have this user's helper, so let's do that. So we'll say const user equals auth helpers dot, I think it's, so we're just going to use a mock user. I haven't created like a database for this. And then we can say const auth token equals, oh wait, JWT Helper dot generate token, and we are going to pass the user, and then we'll say res.send auth, or let's do this res.json auth token, that's going to be the auth token. All right, and obviously in a real system we'd want to do some actual validation of the user, and this is unhandled promise rejection. Yeah, this is returning a promise, so we can await it.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean,
Oh,
if you have an async function and passing into the post handler at line 10,
line 10 here.
yeah, anything within that function are probably not handled.
Yeah, so we can do a try-catch block. This is why you shouldn't live code presentations, boys and girls. All right. Let's see here. Logged in is not defined. Oh, of course, duh. All right, we got back to 200, and let's just restart it just to be safe. Auth token. Oh, okay. And that is why it is important to know. Okay. 200! Yay! All right, so now, like, theoretically, in a system, this would serve as your token for authentication. So I'm not going to burden you guys with any more of that live coding. Does anybody have any questions? Comments, concerns? What do you guys think? Is this cool? Yeah? Yeah? Is anybody going to use JWTs in their try to? Go talk to your boss tomorrow and say, hey, we need to use JWTs?
We already did.
Oh, okay. Well, you're just cooler than the rest of us.
Have you spoken to potential drawbacks of JWTs?
Yeah, of course there are potential drawbacks of JWTs. So one is that anybody can decode this, right? This isn't encrypted data in any sense of the word. So, I mean, even though you're signing it, so you're guaranteeing to know, hey, I wrote this token. This is my token. Nobody manufactured this token. No one figured out, I have this algorithm that generates a random token and nobody figured out my algorithm. So there's that pro, but the con is, of course, there could be a sense of false security in thinking that, hey, this is encrypted when it's not. And there are JWEs. I wanted to put JWEs in this talk, but just because of time limitations, it would get way too crazy. And also, encryption makes people's heads hurt a lot of the time, at least mine. I don't know about you guys. So you can use JWEs, but then the drawback of that is in the browser, how do you accomplish that really well? Because then you'd have to, the browser would have to know the secret, your private key in order to have data that goes back and forth. Unless you're just writing, right, and then you can sign it with your public key, and then...
If you've got HTTPS, you typically don't have to worry about the encryption because It's
Yeah.
already encrypted.
It's already encrypted. What do you think are drawbacks of JWTs?
Well, one that was discussed at work the other day is that, so cookies have the drawback that they're sent automatically, not only by requests from your site to your site, but from any site to your site. And that's where cookies having that third-party access automatically, even though the site can't read it, the site can use it, that's bad. With the JWT, you get rid of CSRF, but you introduce more potential cross-site scripting. Because and in today's modern framework, since we separate the front from the back end, and we're not rendering HTML, we have safe methods to insert text into a page. It's hopefully not that big of a deal. But if somebody somehow inserted script into, say, the comments on your forum, and you allowed that to go through your database and then come back out and display, then that person that was able to inject that script could read from local storage.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's why I originally was like, hey, we should use the secure cookies, right? Because that's obviously not going to get into local storage if we use secure and HTTP only. In modern browsers, there's the caveat, that theoretically won't get in. So that's sort of like a thing where it's like a closed loop between the server and the client, because the scripts in the page will never have access to the cookie in that case, right? Once again, with the caveat of using modern browsers, because I think IE11 doesn't support some of those tags. And also the earlier discussion we had about the Chrome plugins and different extensions for browsers.
That's like saying, somebody downloads something from your website and installs it on their computer. It's game over. Once you install stuff you don't trust, keyloggers, whatever.
So what are we installing with the JWT? I guess I'm confused about your point.
You're saying if somebody gets convinced to install a plugin in their browser.
Yeah.
I mean, that people install stupider things every day.
Yes.
You know? So that there's nothing you can do.
I mean, and so I guess my point is that JWT is one of the tools that you should use in providing a safe architecture. So you're always, especially if you have microservices that are communicating to each other, you're always considering the fact that there could be a man-in-the-middle attack, that there could be, the client could have somehow gotten access to this one person's cookie. Even with all the stuff that we can do, even with JWEs, if we could build a thing where the token itself had encrypted content, so if somebody had access to the person's browser and they could read the plain text cookie, we should limit people's access so they can't destroy the entire system because they had access to one cookie that expires in hopefully less than an hour, right?
Well, I am definitely on the side of JWTs. I hate cookies. I think they're a bad idea. I think you avoid so many security vulnerabilities if you use JWTs. But I was just presenting.
Yeah.
And you can use JWTs using the browser's cookie technology, or you can just respond to them in the body of the JSON, right? That's up to you. There is a perception that there might be more security with the cookies if you're using secure and HTTP only, but as we all know, we live in an imperfect world, so you can't count on that.
It's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
There's cases where the JWTs are more secure, there's cases where cookies are more secure. It's always a trade-off.
I have something to add to that.
Go for it.
We ran into an issue where there was a lot of information being stored in the JWT, and that JWT was being used as a header value to authorize that request for accessing certain resources. The problem with that was that the header RFCs will only allow a header value to be so big.
Oh, yeah.
So the JWT was being trimmed as it was going through one of our proxies, and the requests are failing. So I would just say make sure that you're only storing things in that you need
Yeah.
to store in that, and not the entire state of that user. Maybe,
Yeah, it's not really a storage mechanism.
No, it's not a storage mechanism, but it is nice that you can put some data in the payload. And the cool thing with that is, we can make a little bit of more stateless routes, and we don't have to keep the caching mechanisms I was talking about. So put in it as little as you need to, I guess is the rule.
You ever referred to as JWT?
Jot, yeah. Well, GIF, JWT Jot. It's the new developer kerfuffle for 2018, I guess. Regex. I had one guy who was like, "You have the regex?" I'm like, "No, because that's not a thing." All right. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody, for your attention.